start cleaning these components up. This component certainly shows a fair degree of scuffing on the surface, so I'd say that it has had some dust or something under it. I'll need to put my springs back in place really before I put this in there, I think. This little cam here isn't as free moving as I'd like it to be. I'm going to have to flush that with some solvent. Let's do that now. Hopefully it's just some dried oil or grease under there that's made that stiff. But certainly any drag on a component like that is sufficient to make the depth of field pointers reluctant to move as freely as they should. Yeah, that exposed surface is certainly quite dirty there, so there's something under there. It's dried oil or something is under that surface here, quite definitely. What's that like now? It seems a bit better. Yeah, certainly some dried grease or rubbish under there, because as I wipe that across the surface it's leaving a mark of some sort, so there's still something under there. That's much better. That's nice and free in its action now. Excuse me. That's good. Alright, let's get these springs fitted back. Well, I'll start with the larger diameter spring. And then fit the smaller diameter spring on the top, which will hold everything in place. That's the theory. Getting the thing over the post is, well, it's not impossible, I suppose. It was done before. Somebody else can do it, I can do it. That'll do. That's nice. Right. Let's get our first control ring in position. Now this cam has to track round there, So I'm just giving that a very gentle wipe with some molybdenum paste. Get this fitted in position. That's better. And you can see as this moves, you can see that cam swing there. That's good. Now that one had the larger of the two springs coupled to it. I'll swing that round there to the correct position. And I'll take the first of the depth of field pointers. I've just moved these on the table, so I'm going to be careful to make sure I'm putting the right thing in the right place. This one's got the slot to couple to that little cam, so we should be in the right position. Cleaning both top and bottom surfaces. If there's any oil on these, because they're broad flat surfaces, it tends to stick things together. So you don't want that. And this must fit here. And drop over that post on that small cam. That's correct. That's good. Now there's a separator. This piece here, that separates the two pointers so that the broad flat surfaces are not dragging against each other in opposite directions because they counter-rotate. I'll just clean that, and this goes in position. And I'm checking the shape of this. Sometimes these are symmetrical and sometimes they're not. It appears to be symmetrical. And I can get the spring hooked in position. The spring runs round the outside edge of that separator or spacer. And we have our other depth of field pointer, and I've got to get that cleaned and in position. These counter rotate, so it's important that they're timed correctly so that one isn't reaching the end of its travel before the other. Otherwise you'll find that the depth of field pointers don't meet correctly in the middle at the largest aperture setting. Right, that looks good. Now the hook on this for the spring is down on the underside, so I'll see if I can hook it in there now. Of course that spring is a bugger to get onto. Oh yeah, see why now. Yeah, the last coil of that spring is a bit mutilated looking. I might not be able to get this hooked on there correctly yet. Should be right under tension. What's happening here? Well, that spring is sitting over the top of the spacer instead of around the outside edge. That's better. Now for my timing, have I got those two pointers timed correctly? I think this one is one tooth out. Let's find out. That looks good. Quite happy with the state of that. We've got this lever that goes on here next. Yes, it does. All these lenses are, there's a couple of different sort of methods they've used to do the control levers on the back of some of these lenses. This one is probably one of the simplest because it doesn't have a shim. One of them has a shim, and the position of the shim is not where you'd expect to find it. This should go on, and that lever must clear what? Obviously not there. There. That lever sits there like that. It just lacks the focus mount at the back. Now this I want to have apart because I want to remove this brass rangefinder coupling and clean all that, make sure that's moved smoothly, because otherwise it will make the focus action feel rough. Even though obviously we don't need to couple it to a rangefinder. So I'll clean all these surfaces with a bit of naphtha, cigarette lighter fluid. There's a bit of staining and marks on this nickel plated mount here. I don't know what to make of that. It may mean that moisture has got in there at some stage. It's quite clean on the outside, so it's a bit unusual looking. Perhaps somebody was splashing something fluid around the outside of the lens to clean the outside surfaces, and of course wiped that away nice and neatly, but where it had run inside the lens they were either not aware of it or had no special reason to be concerned about it. This component I will again use some molybdenum paste, and I'm just going to give that a very gentle wipe to make sure that there's all the friction surfaces have seen some. Brass components like this often get a little bit of tarnish on them, and that can be quite rough. That oxidised surface can be quite rough, and things don't move as smoothly as they might. In severe cases you would need to actually clean them with a little bit of metal polish or something to clean up the surfaces. So I just run a bit of molybdenum paste around the outside edge where that runs in the mount. On the cam surface where it would run on the rangefinder coupling, I'll just run some on there. Not that I'm expecting it to be coupling to a rangefinder, but somebody might have a 3S that they want to try it in, and we'll drop that in position. Check that moves. Yeah, it's nice and smooth. That's good. The little retainers, 3 of them with their screws. Typically they only go on in one direction. In this particular lens it wouldn't matter. In some lenses one of these cutouts has to line up with a hole in the mount. In this lens there's nothing to worry about in that regard. So I'll just put them the way I normally do, regardless. check that 3 of them are tight, check that that piece moves smoothly, and it does. Right, just about ready to assemble this. Now, since there's no shim on this lens, I'm not particularly having to struggle with it. It should go together fairly easily. Now, there's an alignment hole here and a little pin on the mount right there, so I know exactly which way round that goes. The coupling for the rangefinder, there's a little notch in here which has to line up with this tab here. So I've got to get that in a position that I can easily find. Next to that screw hole would be a handy spot. And make sure that when I put this together, I've got that by that screw hole. And in theory, if I lower this on carefully, I can do it without disturbing everything. And it'll all go together without a fight. That's the theory. Well, I'm holding that all down. I'm just checking. Now, that depth of field point is not exactly snappy. It's pretty much exactly the same as it was before, which is disappointing. What's rubbing? Right, to think about that, it means that something is rubbing. There's a couple of options. I'm just going to pop a couple of screws in the back of this so that it doesn't come apart. One option is that the springs which pull on those counter-rotating rings with the pointers attached are rubbing against the one of the other components, and so not moving smoothly. And what I have in mind, of course, is that spacer. I'm just going to slacken these screws up about 1/8 of a turn each and pull that mount outwards so that everything is loose, and check the action of those depth of field pointers. And they're nice and snappy. So, what does that tell me? It tells me that when this is done up tight, when it's pulled up tight, I'm just trying to remember where I was before the battery went flat in the video camera half an hour or 3/4 an hour ago. I think it was to do with the depth of field pointers. Now, I suggested that loosening these screws at the back and pulling this out slightly, whereupon the pointers work quite well, might indicate there was a problem inside, that something was slightly bent. But I investigated a little bit closer and I decided that quite possibly it meant that these pointers were slightly bent, that something had jammed underneath one or whatever, so I gave them a bit of a poke to push them back down, which would of course slightly bend them back, hopefully. And this is working quite well now. So there's nothing internal that I need to worry about at all. That's all in good working order. So I'm just checking my mount now, making sure that it has no rattles, that it moves smoothly, and the lens capsule can go back in. But looking at the lens capsule, it looks quite good. The rear group has got our lovely rainbow pattern there, which it's going to stay with that, because I am not going to try and fix that. Let's just take that lens helical off and just check this glass surface at the front. And I'm just cleaning this with some normal domestic glass cleaner. And when you're cleaning lenses, always keep rotating the cotton bud to present a fresh surface to the glass. so that if perchance you pick up some fragment of grit, you're not grinding it all over the lens. That seems fine, and the lens diaphragm works very well. So the lens helical, that needs to be cleaned because the grease was pretty dried out. So I'll start with the outer, and I'll just clean that with some naphtha and a cotton bud. And I just want to remove all that old grease, which is dried out, and it will have collected a lot of dust over time, and so it certainly won't be helping things run as smoothly as they might. That seems fine. So I'll deal with the inner helical and see what that's like. This is a very fine multi-start thread. This is quite clean. You can see by the state of that cotton bud that there's not an awful lot coming off there. So this is quite a clean example. Sometimes they are covered in thick, gooey grease and lots of dust. So just checking the feel of that just runs on there extremely smoothly. That's fine. So a bit of lubricant, I suppose. This stuff works well. Helimax XP Optical and Instrument Helicoid Grease is what it tells me. And you can get it on the internet. I probably got it through Amazon or someone. It used to come in slightly larger bottles than this, which took me a couple of years to get through. But I ordered some more. It came in a much smaller bottle, which won't take me as many years to get through. But it'll certainly take a couple. Let's just run this on. Check that that's running nice and smoothly. It certainly appears to be. I'm going to take that outer helical off and see about getting this in the mount. Now, getting it into the mount, we're trying to achieve a couple of things. We've got to pick up that post, the guide post, which runs in this little slot here. And here I'm just putting a little touch of molybdenum paste on there. And here, the tab that couples to the diaphragm, I've just put a smear of molybdenum paste on there, and as usual there's not much more to that than leaving a dirty mark. And I'll have to pick up that coupling pin here on there. So this is always entertaining. It's not quite impossible, but sometimes you'd be forgiven for thinking it is. And I've got to see if I can get these things all lined up at the same time, hopefully without too many greasy fingerprints on the glass while I'm doing it. No, well, I've got it on the guide post, but it's not on the diaphragm's not coupled. There's a cheat to this. Unscrew the rear group. Open up the diaphragm slightly. Pop your cotton bud in there, just the head of the cotton bud. You don't want it going all the way through to the lens. That will move your aperture setting lever here, make it easier to find. And with a bit of luck, I'll be able to get that thing coupled up. Where is it? About there. Oh. Yeah, somebody was saying they'd had trouble doing this here recently, and they'd managed to displace their diaphragm blades. Let's see if I can do it without doing that. It's just jammed in there at the moment. I'm not getting anywhere. Let's have another go. Just see where my alignment is for these two components. Should be something like that. Oh, that's looking promising. Yeah, it's dropped in. The diaphragm's working correctly and the lens is sitting in its guide. As soon as I had that coupled and I moved the diaphragm setting lever at the back of the lens, of course the cotton bud dropped out because it was no longer being trapped by the diaphragm. So there I have it, this what's it. Now I'm suspending this in the air so I don't displace anything, and I'll put the washers and screws back in the front. I'll get the adjustment of this done shortly, but first of all I need to get these in position so that nothing falls apart again. Otherwise I've got to go through the tedious business of getting the aperture coupling and that guide post all in at the same time. Okay, I've got one screw and washer in there now. That means nothing can fall apart. Now I did close those curtains because of the sun was shining, but it seems to have eased off now, so it's no longer blinding. Normal cloudy weather has been resumed. Oh, you're managing to stay in shot, that's amazing. Just tighten those up lightly and slacken them off a good quarter of a turn. Check that the focus mount is round at infinity. Tighten those up lightly. Because it's reluctant to go all the way to infinity, I know that it's obviously the lens is too far back in the mount slightly, so I'll just slacken those screws off. Move that round slightly, tighten them up. This is just to get the lens very roughly in position prior to putting it on the camera and checking the focus. That's better. That's moving nicely. I'll open the aperture right up. Blow the dust out because I may have got some dust in there when I was farting around with that cotton bud. Screw the rear group back in position and I've tightened that up. I've got a plastic spanner here which will just about do that. ready to check the focus. Well, I have that lens focused correctly now, and to focus the lens, well, to adjust the focus of a lens like this particular model is quite simple. The three screws that you see down here with their washers, they clamp the focus scale ring with the numbers to the outer helical. So if you shift the position of one relative to the other, you're effectively adjusting the focus of the lens, and of course you want it to match, so that when the focus scale ring is at the end of its stop, at the infinity mark, that a suitable focus target at infinity will be nice and sharp on the focus screen. And that was all that's required, and that's the case, so that's all good now, so I can close that up. And in this case I've just got to put back the filter ring, which has a little tab on the back of it which falls into a notch in the mount so it doesn't rotate, and this is held in place with that central conical section there, which actually has two small holes in it in order to engage a tool, but a friction tool is the tool of choice because of course it leaves no marks. If you slip with it, you're not going to dig a hole in something you'd rather have left alone. So there you have it. That's that 50mm f1.9 Rodenstock Iloca Heligon lens, all serviced and good to go. Thanks for watching. Well, I have that lens focused correctly now, and to focus the lens, well, to adjust the focus of a lens like this particular model is quite simple. The three screws that you see down here with their washers, they clamp the focus scale ring with the numbers to the outer helical. So if you shift the position of one relative to the other, you're effectively adjusting the focus of the lens, and of course you want it to match, so that when the focus scale ring is at the end of its stop, at the infinity mark, that a suitable focus target at infinity will be nice and sharp on the focus screen. And that was all that's required. And that's the case, so that's all good now, so I can close that up. And in this case I've just got to put back the filter ring, which has a little tab on the back of it which falls into a notch in the mount so it doesn't rotate, and this is held in place with that central conical section there, which actually has two small holes in it in order to engage a tool, but a friction tool is the tool of choice because of course it leaves no marks. If you slip with it, you're not going to dig a hole in something you'd rather have left alone. So there you have it. That's that 50mm f1.9 Rodenstock Iloca Heligon lens, all serviced and good to go. Thanks for watching.